Iran has attacked the UAE. Again, the peace was good while it lasted. And then today, May 4th, explosions were heard around the country as the UAE's air defence system intercepted the strikes. We're hearing that 4 missiles were launched from Iran. Iran denies this, but the UAE says it holds Iran responsible. The UAE managed to stop 3 missiles while a 4th one fell into the sea. There was also a large fire at the Emirates' biggest port and oil storage facility. UAE said these attacks constitute a dangerous escalation and it had the right to respond. You might be wondering what just happened. There was relative peace in the Gulf region over the last few days. Well, it started earlier on today. Trump had said that the US was going to free the ships stranded in the Gulf. As a reminder, the Strait of Hormuz is closed still, which means that around 20,000 sailors have been just floating around on cargo ships since the war started at the end of February. Stuck. Trump named it Operation Freedom, which is a weird name to pick because freedom is usually the word the US chooses when it invades a country for oil. And that's not my joke, by the way. It's a joke that goes back more than 20 years in meme culture. Hey, country X, you discovered oil. Sounds like you need some freedom. There was a lot of uncertainty about what this actual freedom meant though, and how it would take place. Iran, and indeed the Western media, interpreted it as the US going in and actually getting the ships out themselves, which is logistically quite tricky. Others said it might just be giving intelligence and directions. Trump went to social media to call it a humanitarian gesture, freeing the ships to save the world economy. But the US later added it was the military was going to support Operation Freedom with 15,000 personnel, guided missile destroyers, and more than 100 aircraft. If you're not quite getting the message, we're reopening the strait. Typical American way, which was never going to go down very well with Iran. Iran has said that the security of the strait was in their hands, not America's. Any US involvement would result in strikes. Iran is sort of treating security of the strait in the same way that Russia deals with peace talks in Ukraine. If you interfere in any way, we will strike. And that appears to have been what has happened today. There were indications that the US was taking action to reopen the strait. And so Iran quickly escalated by attacking the Gulf's oil facilities, UAE, which of course links back to the West's economy. Iran hasn't just been surprising its neighbours with this, it has been pretty clear in its warnings. We will strike the Gulf if the US tries to take control of the strait. There were also reports of smaller ships being struck by Iran. They were just stuck, they weren't doing anything, but Iran struck them, including a South Korean vessel. Overall, dramatic stuff in the strait after what has been a fairly peaceful last few days. The US and Iran also engaged in conflicting reports over apparent strikes on a US warship in the strait. This may have been to get at the US stock market. Iran would have been making comments to cause panic in the US economy, and the US would have been talking back to calm the markets. When Iran claimed that they had struck a US warship, oil prices quickly spiked up. The US then said it was a false report. The price went down naturally. Iran then said the strikes were not damaging the warships but had been a warning shot. The market said, "Oh, I'm tired. Aren't we all?" There are two ways to read this latest episode, Operation Freedom. One, that Trump's Operation Freedom backfired, that he was trying to free up the world's economy without actually returning to war. But he underestimated Iran's willingness to keep it closed. Or, option two, that this is the beginning of a plan to go back to war. Trump's framing of the whole thing as a humanitarian one gives him an excuse to say that a return to war would be the only way to save the world. He can also say, look, I've tried the peaceful way and it doesn't work. We have no choice. And of course, I'm leaning towards option two, because when you call any kind of military operation freedom, it's usually going in one direction: war.